I'm Colin Kelly Cook, Power Platform Architect and Developer. In my last video, we built this using SharePoint lists. In this video, we're going to be building this using Dataverse. So what is Dataverse? Dataverse is your new best friend, completely misunderstood and completely misunderused. So many people get into Power Apps, I think, using SharePoint lists because they have a free license, they're a citizen developer, they get used to it, they look at Dataverse and it looks scary, or they try and do something with it, it's not as easy as what they're used to, and they kind of back away from it. Now, I've been there when I first started building Power Apps. I used SharePoint lists all the time because it was all I could use. But once I got into Dataverse, it is the only way to do things. Like SharePoint lists, yes, if there's a really specific scenario where that's the only way, do it that way. Please, please, please learn Dataverse. Dataverse is not just a database. It is a package of all of Microsoft's technologies built into something that you can use with low code, and it works perfectly with Power Apps. It's essentially underpinning Power Apps. So when you build an environment or when you set up a Power Platform tenant, Dataverse is there in every environment. It's managing all of your flows, it's managing all of your apps, all of your settings. They're all in tables underneath. Microsoft have used Azure SQL in order to create these tables. They're using Azure Storage to create blob storage. They're using Cosmos DB for login and analytics. They've taken everything that they've built so far in Azure and put it into a simple package that you can use through a web browser. You don't need to get any magical tools to connect to it or do anything complex. You can literally just get in and use it. So you do need to add it to your environment to be able to use it as custom tables. It will use 1 GB of storage in your environment. If you've got a Power Platform premium license, then all of this goodness is there. The main thing we're going to focus on is the relational databases. So this is SQL sitting behind, but we don't see the SQL. We just see the low code sitting on top. We can literally create relationships really easily and really quickly, which is what I'm going to show you. I've had people tell me it is not a relational database. It is 100% a relational database. Even so that it lets you create many relationships without creating or seeing the intersect table. It does all of that for you. It does auditing, it does login, it does analytics. It allows us to create as well role-based access controls, which for me is probably one of the biggest benefits that of moving from SharePoint lists to Dataverse. SharePoint lists, when it comes to creating records for a single user and then managing those across apps and trying to restrict what people can and can't do, becomes really difficult or really even just hard to see what's going on. With Dataverse, it's simple. We use security roles with role-based access controls, and I'll show you how we set those up later on. There's so much more in there that I could spend hundreds of videos going through all the various different features, but we're going to stick to the basics. We're going to get you into creating tables, setting up relationships, using forms and views. I'm going to build a model-driven app on top of it, and I'm going to show you how easy it is just to click, connect, and configure everything into it. I know it can seem daunting at first, and even watching this first video through, you're probably going to feel like I am lost, I don't know what I'm doing. You're going to try and think, I'll just go back to SharePoint lists. Please don't. If you've got any questions or if you've got anything you want me to re-go over, please post it in the comments and I'll go back over those specific features and go into more detail just to help you guys out. Okay, so in this video, I'm going to walk you through start to finish, building out everything you see on the screen here. So let's start with the basics now. If you don't understand what environments are, an environment is a single isolated Dataverse environment within your Power Platform tenant. You can have multiple environments in your tenant, and each of those has its own isolated Dataverse. They can't talk to each other directly, not without some kind of Azure Data Factory or data flow. It means all the data within that environment is set and isolated, meaning we can have the same solution or the same app in 3 different environments with different data sources. Perfect for ALM, it means we can have a dev, a test, and a production. Now within our environment, we can have multiple solutions, and that solution is just housing all of the components, our canvas apps, our entities, our security roles, everything within a solution that we can export, move to a new environment, and then have all of that isolated data as well. So perfect for ALM. So we're going to build a brand new environment in this video. We're going to build a solution inside it, and then we're going to put all of our wonderful apps and pieces inside of there. So we're going to start with this center row. These are our entities. These are our tables. This is where our data is stored in our Dataverse. So we're going to have assets. We're going to have locations, work item, and tasks. We're going to have spaceships, which are our assets. They're going to have locations. They're going to be in a specific hangar. They're going to be work items. These are the overall object of things that need to be done to that spaceship after it's landed. And then there's going to be individual tasks under those work items that mechanics need to complete. Now, to make this even more of a demo, we're going to build a model-driven app on the left-hand side. That's for our admins to go in and create assets, create locations, create work items, create tasks, and manage all of that. They're going to be able to do everything and anything. Then on the right-hand side, we're going to have this Canvas app, this wonderful UI, UX experience for our mechanics. They can walk around on their tablet, they can find out those work items that have been created, and they can complete those tasks out in the field. And we're going to create some security roles to help with that. So one of the main benefits of moving to Dataverse over SharePoint lists is we get this granular permission, these role-based access controls. We can create multiple security routes. We can give granular permissions on our entities and then also use those to give access to our model-driven apps, meaning that we can have much better control over what people can do in those entities. And as you'll see later on in the video, we can give them like create, read, edit, update at either a user level all the way up to like an organization level. And we can embed all that within that solution, meaning everything is exported. Security roles, our apps, our entities, our columns, all of our settings can all be exported. And then for you guys, it will be free to download from our website. So you can export it, import it, have everything working straight out of the box. Had I done this with SharePoint lists, you would have had to set up your own SharePoint lists and create them and do everything. We're going to get all of this built in this demo. So let's take a quick look at the entity relational diagram. So here what I've done is just put together a quick overview of the tables that I want to build in my app and how those relationships are going to work. So we're going to have our locations. They're just going to be simple locations, just hangars, a name of a hangar. They're going to be related to an asset. So an asset can sit in a hangar. Now, this is probably not how the real world would work, but for our instance, a single asset, a spaceship, is going to be able to sit in a hangar, and we're going to be able to set up that relationship. Our asset is going to be able to have multiple work items. It's going to come and go. And every time it comes and goes, a new work item is going to be created. It's going to be related to that asset, and then someone's going to be able to work on it. Then our work item is going to have multiple tasks related to it. So a single spaceship, when it lands, will have a work item. That task might be it needs refueled, it needs its hull repaired, it needs something done to it. And just so we can show you some of the other rich features, I've got choices. So against our work items, we're going to have a work item state, whether it's new, in progress, or completed. And our tasks are going to have priorities. So we're going to be able to have a P1, a P2, or a standard as well. I'm going to build all of this in Dataverse. So let's jump over and start building some stuff out. Please do not adjust your headset. There may be some mild interference in the next section. All will be redeemed eventually. Okay, so I've just gone to make.powerapps.com. This is my home. You can see I'm in my default environment up the top right here. This is just an empty tenant that I use, so I do just build things in the default environment. In production environment, you should always create new environments. You should even rename your default environment. There's a whole bunch of stuff you should do before we start getting into that. But for playing around, what I suggested was we're going to create a brand new environment. We're going to switch on Dataverse, which is going to give us access to creating those custom tables. So we can create a new environment by heading up to the top right here and just head into the admin center. This will take us to the Power Platform Admin Center. And once our admin center has loaded, if we click on environments on the left-hand side, you'll see I've got NovaLogic default and I've got another pilot one that I'm just messing around with there. We're going to go up the top right to
this is left, this is right.
New here. We're just going to give our environment a name. We can call it whatever we want. This is just a demo. I'm going to delete this afterwards, so it doesn't matter. In production, you should be given these more names unique to what they're actually trying to do, either for an entire app as an environment or for a group of apps, maybe for a business area. Maybe this is the accounting environment where the accountants do their funny money jiggy. Make this a managed environment. The managed environments are really powerful, but we're not going to go into detail into those. Choose a group. We don't have groups in this one. Region. I'm in Australia, but my tenant is in the UK, so I can't actually create an environment in Australia from this tenant. I'm just going to put it in the United Kingdom. Should be fairly quick, hopefully. Type. So as a type, we get trial, developer, production, and sandbox. Now, developer has a limited timescape. You can use them for free. Anybody can use all the premium features, but they will ask you if you want to shut it down after 30 days or so. We could use developer in this one. I'm going to use sandbox, which is the next step up. It's going to use our capacity, and it's going to mean I have to have a license, but it's not necessarily a production environment. So production I would use for my actual production app if I was going to move this through ALM. I'm just going to put sandbox on this one so it stays indefinitely, but it's not for production. Now here, add a Dataverse store. So this is the important part. This is where we need to say yes. Like I said, Dataverse is always behind, but by saying yes to this, we get access to actually create and manipulate the tables in Dataverse. So we can create our own custom entities or tables, columns, relationships, all that goodness. Pay as you go with Azure, we're not putting Azure on this, so we don't need to attach a subscription for any specific elements. Just click next. Language is English, but I'll accept English United States. Currency, we're going to switch that to Aussie dollars, good old Karoos. Security group. Now, security group, it restricts who can access and use apps in this environment. In production, you should always have a security group on there, even if it's for everybody. It just restricts, and you can lock down and turn things on and off. For my purposes, because it's a demo, I'm just going to select none, so there's no security group on it. Anyone, which is only me, can access this in my tenant. You can create a unique identifier for this environment. I'm just going to go with the generated one, which will be a couple of numbers and CRM. Dynamics 365 apps. So we're not using any Dynamics 365 apps. Those are 365 CRM, field service, the big, huge apps that cost loads of money that Microsoft create. They're essentially just really big, complex Power Platform solutions. We're not going to use those. We're going to build our own. Deploy sample apps and data. We don't need the sample apps and data because we're going to create our own as well. So we can literally just click save. It's going to create our environment for us, and then we can get to the good stuff. You can see it getting created here. It should be fairly quick if I just run a refresh. Hey presto, our environment is ready. If we click on this environment here, it should load the information. So you can see it gave it a custom URL. There is no security group assigned. We can see security roles and users, which we'll come back to. We can also from this screen look at all the Power Apps and all the Power Pages and flows that are in this environment, regardless of the ones we have access to. So for admins, it's really, really good if you want to come in here and see everything underneath it. This is where you can see it. Now, I'm going to copy this URL because I'm going to show you if we head back over to make.powerapps.com. If I go up to change environments, you'll see it did actually come up. Sometimes these don't come up instantly. So the best way to get to them sometimes is just to copy that URL in, run over to it. It'll pop into the environment. And then the next time you actually head over to make.powerapps.com, it should appear in this list. So if you ever don't see it in there, just use that trick. It should bring it across. I'm surprised that came in. Actually, that's the quickest it's ever done that. So in my task manager demo, we can see we've got some apps. Now these are just part of the Power Platform service. Those are things built by Microsoft. We don't need to worry about those. The next thing we need to do is we need to add a solution. So that's that container where we're going to house all of our stuff. And you can have multiple of these solutions in one environment. If we go over to the left and click solutions, we can see we've got a default solution. Everything we build goes into this default solution, and it can be handy for coming in and finding things. You can build things that aren't in solutions. They end up in here. I would recommend, however, we always start with the solution, build things into the solution so we got them in nice little packages. I'm going to create a new solution. The display name is going to be the Task Manager Solution. Now, publisher. So there's a default publisher. It's always going to prefix everything we build with this publisher name. Recommendation, always create a new publisher. That's going to be me. And we're going to The name is just going to be my name. And the prefix, this is the prefix of everything we build, remember? So I'm going to put CKC. So everything that I create is going to have CKC underscore name of the field, name of the table. So we'll always be able to recognize that it was me that built them. This means that when I export it as well, so when you guys get it, you'll see that I was the original publisher, and you can put contact information in there. Go back to this, we're going to click save. And now if we select publisher, you'll be able to see Colin Kelly Cook's publisher. So we'll choose that. Version 1.001. This will increment as we create solutions, as we export it. You can change the version number if you need to, and we don't need to worry about those settings for now. If we create that. So now I'm inside my solution. So you can see on the left, I've got some categories here. I can look at apps, cards, tables. There's nothing in here at the moment. Now I always start first with the tables. So we built that model out, and I always draw the model out first to try and understand the tables I'm going to build. I normally put all the columns into my entity relational diagram as well. I like to have that picture before I start building, because if I start building, I tend to add, remove, and figure it out as I go. But if I draw it all down, it just makes it easier to go and build. So let's build out our first table. So if we go to new table and click set advanced properties, the first table we're going to be building is location. So it's actually locations, but what Dataverse will do is it will give it a single name, and then it'll get a plural name. So we always just call out our table by the thing that's in there. So there's a location in there, and then it'll give it the plural name of locations. If we go to advanced options, we can see it does that CKC underscore location. Type is just a standard table. Record ownership is a user or team. So a single person or a team is going to own this one. You can do organization, but when you go down that road, it makes it much harder to go back. So user or team is where we're going to start. And that's, again, probably subject for another video. We can give it an image if we want to. We can give it a color. That's just what it looks like when we're viewing it in the admin center. We've got all these other settings down here. So like I said, Dataverse is full of other features. We've got auditing, we can track changes. Like, there's so much stuff in here. We're not going to worry about most of this. What I will say is most of the time, just turning on auditing is probably something you want to do when you're building production apps, but it has to be enabled at the environment level. I'm not going to do it for this demo. You can see we've got all this other stuff, even can be taken offline. So there is offline functionality just baked into Dataverse as well. Primary column name. So just like SharePoint list, which has title, always has to be a primary column name. And this doesn't have to have a unique value in it. It just always has to be one. So this is the name of the location. I would always recommend just changing this to something that makes sense. For the demo, name is fine. My location has a name, and then we're going to add more columns to it. So that's all fine. We can set it whether it's business required, which a primary column name should always be. And we can increase the maximum character count if we need to. So we're just going to save that. And that's it. We just created our first table. It comes with a whole bunch of columns in the background that do all the things that you can expect in a table. We didn't have to create any of these. They all just came. So we've got create by, created on, modified by. The other great thing is it creates a location column. So this is a location ID. This is a GUID, and it's just going to create a GUID for every row in our table, giving it a unique identifier. Like SharePoint lists have an ID that runs 1 through whatever. This is a GUID, and this is how we can locate specific rows. It does that all on its own. So now we want to build Now we want to build our own columns. However, for location, I actually don't need anything more. I'm happy to just have a location that has a name in this instance. In your production app, maybe your location has some other information about it. Maybe you want to go down some different paths. For our demo, we're just going to have a location. We're going to give it a name. Now, Dataverse has this concept of forms and views. So a form is the thing that we use to create new, edit, and view records. Same as a SharePoint list, the create, view, and edit. So it gives us a form initially, and then we can create more forms. And we're going to have to do that for our model-driven app. But for our Canvas app, they're not important because we're going to create our own custom user interface. So when we come to build our model-driven app, I'll show you the forms, and we're going to edit the forms to add our fields on and make them editable. Views is a table of views. So we can create multiple different views using filters, different sorting. These are actually valuable in a Canvas app because we can actually directly ask for a view. So the same way we would with SQL, we don't have to do all of our filtering in our app. We can create a view that's doing the filtering inside Dataverse, and then we can just ask for the information in that view. So we can offload all of the filtering and sorting to Dataverse and pull it in. Of course, we can do that in the app and it will delegate, so we can offload that still. But this can be really handy for simple and quick and a much better way to manage those views. These are probably more important in the actual model-driven app because we use these to view the rows and we can show which columns we want to show and do the filtering and sorting in there. So we'll come back to these once we've built out our tables. If we go back to tables, the second table that we're going to build out is the assets. So we go to table, and remember we just give it the singular name and it will give it the plural name. CKC asset, primary column name. We're just going to leave as name. Again, my asset has a name in this instance, so I'm happy with name. So if we click save there. Now if we head over to columns, I'm going to create a new column. So we go up to the top left here, create a new column. So I just need to make sure I'm in my asset table because I just deleted a whole bunch of video where I built all those columns in the wrong table. So now we're going to go to assets, we're going to head to columns, and we're going to start creating new columns, more than just the primary column and all of the system columns. The first thing I'm going to put is just a simple description. So I want each asset set to have a description, and we can choose the data type here, similar to how we choose them for SharePoint lists. We need to define the type of information that goes in here. For this one, we're going to choose text, and we're going to switch it from just plain text to text area. So this is not as important for the Canvas app because it's just going to be a string that we're going to bring in. For a model-driven app, it's going to show as a text area rather than a single line. So we're going to choose text area. I'm going to go to advanced storage options. I'm going to pull this up to about 500. You can have up to 4,000 in a single plain text area column in Dataverse required. So I'm going to leave these as optional. All of my demo ones are just going to be optional. I'm not going to make them required. And here we can, if we want to, enable column level security. So as I said, this is where we can do really granular permissions with our security roles. Our security roles, for simplicity, are just going to be on the entities for this demo. And then we're just going to click save. So we've got description. And obviously best practice, you should probably put a description of the column in there as you're building it as well. And the next column we're going to add on our asset is an image. So each of our assets is going to have an image. And again, with data types, we can go to File and Image. So we actually get to choose an image type, which is great. We don't have to mess around with connecting it to back-end data sources and various things. For our purposes, this image is on this asset. It's going to be the primary image. So in our model-driven app, in our views, this is the image that's going to show for that row when we view it. Because you can have multiple images, you can choose which one would be the primary. It's giving it a scheme name of image with our prefix, which is the publisher. And we've set a maximum image size as default. We can up this if we want to. That's going to be fine for what we want, and can store full images. Yes, we want to keep the full image because in our app, we want to blow it up and see the entire image, and the same options as we had with our previous column. So let's save that. And now where the fun starts. So we want to be able to, for each asset, say which location is it currently at. And that's the important thing. When we're building our relationships, those one-to-many relationships, we need to decide which is the record that I'm selecting the other table from. I could add it to location, but then it means that the location owns the asset. And in a one-to-many relationship, that would mean that many locations can be linked to one asset. As I said, this is a one-to-one, so it's not too important, but I'll show you in work items and tasks how that works. But for the purposes of this, if we think about when I go to build my asset, on my asset form, I want to select its location. So we put the column in the asset table instead. Now we can go to relationships here and we can build new relationships. So you can see here I can choose on this table, is it a many to one? Is it a one to many? And as I said, fantastically, you can actually do many to many in here and it does all of the magic for you. But the easiest way to do this without getting confused is add the column to the table. You want to be able to select the actual other table. So if we go to new column, this is going to be the location. So the best practice, what I do is just put ID on the end of it. So now I know this is a lookup column. I know that I'm looking up the location and that's the location ID that's in that column, which means that I can get all of the other columns from it. And we can choose lookup. So we're going to choose lookup. Customer is just a special lookup for CRM systems with the contact records, accounts, etc. For this one, we're going to use a basic lookup. Set it to required, no. Searchable, yes. So then we go and choose the related table. So in here, because I've built my location table, I can just type location. I can see my location there. You can see it gives it a schema name, and you see it's going to build this relationship. Now, there's a few different ways to name these locations. Normally you would name them by the many to one. For this, I'm just going to leave it as is. So it's saying that my asset has the location ID column and it's linked to the location table. We're just going to leave that as is for now. Click save. So that's it. So that built my location column. It's looking up the location or a row from the location table. And if we go to relationships, we can see somewhere here, we can see the relationship was built for us. So it did all of that connecting and it's defined it as a many to one relationship because. So now if we go back up to our columns, I think that's all the columns that we're going to put onto our asset table. So the next two tables that we're going to build is our work item. There we go, work item, work items, and you can see it just strips out the space in there. So underneath this, the schema name is work item. Let me just check my diagram here to see the columns that we're going to put on it. So user owner, we're just going to leave all this as is. Our primary column name as well, we're just going to set it to name. Now we're actually going to change this in a minute because I don't want to write the name. We want to automatically generate a name. So we can just leave all this as is. User or team, everything in there is fine, no problems. Let's just save our work item table. And then let's just quickly create, let's head back to our tables, new table, advanced properties, task. So task is our final table. And task again, I'm just going to leave name. So these primary columns are fine for what I need at the moment. Now if we head back over to work item, we're going to start adding some columns to our work item. So the first column we're going to add is another lookup. And this is going to be to the asset ID. So I'm going to map this to my asset table that I built. So I want to, on my work item, say that this work item relates to an asset ID. So that means that my asset can have multiple work items, can have 3 or 4 work items, and they can all be related to the same asset. But we're just going to build it this way because we know on this form, on the work item, I want to be able to select the asset. And if you remember, the asset was then selecting its current location. So we don't need all of that information on our actual work item table. We can use the relationships to run through. So we just click save on that one. And I want my work item to have a due date. So I'm going to count down in my app how many days till the actual work item needs to be completed. So we can choose date and time. I'm going to choose date only. And for date fields, one of the important settings is probably this time zone adjustment. So Dataverse is time zone aware. The apps are time zone aware. So it can become very messy if someone's saving something in Alaska and they're saving it in the Alaskan time zone, or saving it in the UK in their UK time zone, and we're in Australia and it's in the Australian time zone. Like, how do we know where they were and what they did? So we say time zone independent on this because we want to save the UTC, or the universal time. That means that underneath it will be a single time, and then the app can translate that into the person's time zone. Now, there are reasons to use the user local if we want to save the exact date that they were using, or if we want to save date only. So we're going to leave it as time zone independent, because then we can allow the app and the person's settings to pick up their own time zone. It'll look at this, it'll add their time zone on or take their time zone off, and they'll sit within their time zone. So we'll leave that as is for now. And we will just click save. And then we're going to create a work item state. So the reason I'm calling it work item state and not just status or state is because there's two system columns that are created when a Dataverse table is created. And one of those is status, and that means active or inactive. So in Dataverse, we don't really ever delete rows, we just switch them off, because if we've got relationships and something's happened in the past, if we delete that row, all of those relationships are going to get messed up. So we do what's called soft delete. We just set them from active to inactive, inactive to active. But this is something different. I want to have independent states on my record. Now we could go into status and we could change and add statuses, but recommendation of express practices is don't mess with anything that's out of the box, add our own customization on top and use that instead. Not completely black and white, but to keep things simple while you're learning, don't mess with anything that's system created. So this one, for the data type, we're going to choose choice. So instantly we get choice and we get yes, no. So this is not just a yes, no. We want to create some specific choices. So once we choose choice, we can see we've got a few more options here. Selecting multiple choices. So that choice field can hold multiple choices being selected, which again is very handy. Sync with global choice. So we can say no, which means that we can create a choice that only exists on this table. Nothing else can use it. Nothing else can touch it. It can be independent just for this table. There's very specific reasons to do that. For the purposes of this, I'm going to just sync with a global choice, because we might want to reuse that state in various different places to make sure our flows work or various different things are in sync. So we're going to say yes. If we go to sync with this choice, there's already a whole bunch of choices in there, but we want to create our own. So we need to create a new choice, and we're going to call this just work item state. So same as the actual column. And then in the choices, we are going to have, let me just check my diagram here. We're going to have new. We're going to have in progress. And we're going to have complete. So you can see it also has a value. So this is a specific unique number for that choice that we can use for various different things. That's how Power Platform and Dataverse connects things in the background. But we're also just going to see the labels. So you see in our Canvas app, this is the one we select and choose. This is just a background value. Advanced options, don't need to worry about those. So let's just save that. Now we've saved it. If we click on this drop down and we search for work item state, we can see, we can sync it with work item state, and the default choice is none, but actually I want it to be new. So for every work item that's created, it'll automatically be set to new, and then we're going to use the app to move it through the various stages as things happen. So let's click save on that. Okay, so that's work items. Now we just need to finish up with our tasks. So for our tasks, the first thing I'm going to do, it's already got name, is I'm going to create a column called is complete. So best practice, again, we could just put complete, but that can be a bit ambiguous. So I tend to always put is or has or something in front of it. So when this is true, I know exactly what it means. So if this is ticked, it means it is complete. It just makes it a bit more readable for someone else who's going to use it, or when we're building the app. And the data type for this one is going to be choice, but it's going to be yes, no. And the default choice is going to be no, because when we first build this, it's not going to be complete, and then we're going to switch it to complete once it's done. And you can see here, For these, the value is 0 and 1, which is really handy because in a Canvas app, 0 and 1 also means true and false. So we can just look for ones and zeros and booleans for the yes, no as well, which makes it really easy. So we'll save that. And then we're going to create a task priority. And we're going to again just do a choice. So we've got a choice, searchable, sync with the global choice. We'll create a new choice called task priority. And here we're going to allow people to define what priority is this. So we're going to have just priority 1, priority 2, and priority 3. Actually, no, we're just going to call that standard. So we've got P1, P2, and standard. And actually for these as well, then we could have like different colors. So we could put red on that one. We could say this one's more of an orange, nice little rag status. And this one's nice green. Again, that's not going to affect the Canvas app, but in our model driven app, we can actually use those to display them in those colors, which is quite nice. So save that choice. We will now choose the task priority. Default choice is standard. I always want them to be standard unless someone chooses otherwise. You could set that to none, meaning they have to do it, but I'd rather everything has a status at least when the column is added. And let's save that. And now, just like we did before with our asset and location, every task should be related to a work item. So it sounds like I want to go on to the work item and I want it to connect it to multiple tasks, which is true. Yes, we can do it that way around. We can say in our app, go to a work item, add a task to it. But for the purposes of the relationship, it's the task that is related to a work item. So the task will have the field, which work item am I related to? So we add our work item. And again, I use that ID to just identify this as a lookup column. The work item is related to our work item table. And it's going to build that relationship for us. Now, the last thing I'm going to do before we've completely built our entire entity relationship model is for task, I'm happy to have name as just type something in. That's the basic name. Let's just check, did we add description? No, let's quickly add a description. This will be the rest of the text that goes on to it. So exactly the same as we did for our work item. We'll just up this to 500 so you can add a bit more information about what the task is. Let's just save that. But for my work item, I mean, what's the name of a work item? Who knows? We want to manage this a bit better. So we're going to go to our work item. Just check my table here. And we're actually going to change this. So this is currently a single line of text. I want it to be an auto number. So auto number will generate a unique number every time a row is created. We have some options here about then what kind of auto number is created. So we can give like a specific format. We can have a prefix on it. So you can call it like work item and it will have WI dash. And then the seed value we can say is, we can start at 100. We can even go higher. So you can see it starts at the furthest end as 1, 2, and it'll just build through with an auto number. We can set the minimum number of digits. We'll set that to 4. Drop that back down again. But the other cool thing that we can do is if we go to here, we can have a custom auto type and we can give it a specific format using some different syntax. So we can add sequential number, we can add date time, we can add random strings. So I'm going to add at the beginning of mine a random string. Let's pop that at the start. So I want just a random string of 4 characters. Let's make it 3 characters and a sequential number up to 3. So it's going to create a really unique work item number, and that's what I'm going to use to identify them. It does have a primary unique ID, but that's a GUID. It's a very long number. The main reason for this is I'm thinking my mechanics might want to ring the admin team and say, I'm having a problem with a work item or I need something to happen to it. They're not going to want to read out a GUID search by a title that might be non-unique. But this is a simple number. They can go, it's M441-10001. Someone in the admin can search for that, and then they can go and edit it and do what they want. So this just makes it easier to identify, but it makes it unique as well. So let's just save that. And that's it. So we have everything set up, all stored in our solution. We've got all of our data, all of our relationships pre-built. We can now build the admin app as a model-driven app and let people in the admin team create assets, locations, work item, and tasks, and link them all together. Okay, so this video doesn't end up being 5 hours long. I've just shifted my solution over into my default environment. I've actually pre-built a lot of the Canvas apps. So my other videos go into how I use containers and a whole bunch of stuff. We're just going to talk about the data in Dataverse in this one. I've added some rows into my tables. So here you can see I've actually got some assets. I've got some locations. We can click on any table in Dataverse. And without having to do anything magical, we can see all the data. If we click edit, we can actually see the data here. If you want to see some other columns, you can click more and you can select the columns you want to view. You can drag and drop these across as well. So let's have a look. If we wanted to see status and a few other things, we can put those in and drag and drop them around. So don't have to do any complex querying. We can actually just do this all from within Dataverse, all low code, nice and easy. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create that admin application. So I'm going to go into my solution. I'm going to go to all. I'm going to go to new app. We're going to create a model driven app. So these are these configurable Dataverse apps. This is our admin app. We're going to create a task admin app. And we're just going to click create. So once it's loaded, this is our empty app and we're going to start adding in some things. I'm going to show you how really easy this is to do. We're not going to go mad. There's a lot you can do with model driven apps well beyond this, but if you want to get started, this is a really easy way to create just apps that can update and edit data. I see so many people create Canvas apps just for creating a column and adding in data, or creating a table view and then adding in a row, editing a row. Like, model driven apps are much better at it. They might not be pretty. Pretty isn't always important. Just getting the job done is sometimes important. And then we can use our Canvas apps as an augmented app for doing other things, which is exactly what we're going to do here. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to add a page. Now, when we say page, we've got some options. Custom pages are like Canvas apps that go inside the app. They're native. So we have a bit more control over the UI UX. Web resources are JavaScript components. Dashboards are actually just built-in dashboards. We can put in charts and various different things. And navigation links are links outside. For this one, we're going to stick to the basics, which is a Dataverse table. So these are in my environment. These are the system tables that all come built in. If I go to search, I can look for assets. So asset is my custom table, and I do want to show it in the navigation. So it's going to add it in, and in assets, you can see it's loaded up a view of all of my assets. And this is where that assets, this is where those views come in. So if I just head back out here, go to make.powerapps.com, we can head over to our solution, our task manager solution. We look at our asset table. If you remember, I said under views, it's got all of these out of the box views. You can create your own ones. This one that it's showing over here, we can see is active assets, and there's an inactive assets view. We're just going to edit the active assets view. I'm not going to do anything mad, so I'm not worried about editing the main one. I'm just going to add in some new columns. So I want to see the description, and I want to see the location that it's currently linked to, and I'm going to put the image on the after the name there, so we'll see the image for it. Then I'm just going to save and publish that. You can see on the right we do have sort by, so we can do some sorting and filtering in this view, as I said, and that will all just come across to the model driven app when it's set. For this one, I just want to see some more columns. So if I head back over to here, if I just refresh this page here, Didn't save the app, so I'm just going to show you now that we've got that new one. If we go in and add our Dataverse table, go to asset, add that in. Oh, we've added it in twice. Let's just get rid of that old one, remove that one. This is the new assets view, so automatically it's just created the new view. I just had to go in and configure it. I didn't have to do any magical UI UX here. It's just updated my view, which is exactly what I need. On the right here, you can say which views you want to show. For these ones, I'm going to turn them all off and just show active assets, which means that they won't have the option, or our users won't be able to switch between them. You can have multiple or none in there if you want to. Just going to save this. So the next page I want to add is another Dataverse table. I want people to be able to do location. And we can actually add multiple at a time here. So we're also going to do work items, work item, and task. And I shouldn't have called it task because there is a built-in custom table, built-in system table called task. So my bad. Shouldn't have done that. Let's just check. This is actually the built-in table. So we're going to remove that one. Should have called that task manager tasks or something completely different, but never mind. Now we've got all of our tasks, we've got all of our locations, and we've got all of our assets and work items. The other thing is you'll see it's got an assets form. So this is the form when someone clicks on one of these that they will see. So let's just save and publish this. Now that's published. If I go to play, we can see what our actual app would look like if someone was navigating through it. We've got all of our links on the left hand side. We've got this new view that I created, and you'll see if I click on one of these assets, it'll open up the asset form. So it's got name, owner, image, and location ID automatically added to the form. Now what if we want to change this form? Because we don't really want to show the owner, we might just want to let them update the name, and we haven't got our description. In fact, I don't think we put a description on the assets, but let's say we want to change this form. So if we head back over to our solution and just pop out of this view, if we go to our asset forms, see there's three forms. So there's an information form, which is a main form. That's the one that we're going to show. Quick view is for putting a form inside a form. We're not going to worry about those, and cards we're not going to worry about either. Now, best practice, don't edit the main form. Let's just leave that and create our own new form. So we're going to create a new main form. And we're going to call this, form asset admin. So it's giving us these basic fields. We basically, if we look at this, we've got tabs across the top. We've got then sections within our actual form, and then we've got columns here. So one of the first things I always do is this related tab is put in by default. I'm just going to hide that because it's going to be confusing. Oh, that was the wrong thing to hide. I want this form to be really clean and simple. I don't want people to get confused with what they're seeing. So a new asset or an asset that they're editing will just have a general tab. And then we've got this section, and it will always complain that there's no name in there. You don't have to put one in there, but it's good practice to just fill them out as we go. We go to this section, then we can choose from the left hand side the fields that we want to add. So I want to add in description. I've got my name, I've got my description. Now my description here is only shown as a single field, but that's actually bigger. We can say how high is it. We can up that to maybe 3 rows. That will show a little bit bigger on the form. Now owner, I don't want this to be on my main form. You can actually just drag them. I can put it up here in the top right. It will show the owner up the top right of my form now. I've got an image. I'm going to drop the image below. If we wanted to separate this out as well, we can go over to the left, and under components, we can add a new section in underneath. We can drop a new section, and then we can move image into that section. This is really easy. You can see I can just create my form and chuck all my fields on it however I want. In this section, I'm going to hide the label. Be obvious that it's an image. I'm not going to have a label on that one. And then we can actually set these things to lock and read only. So you can make that a field that you can't actually edit if it's something I just want to show. Now, if we save and publish this form and head back over to our app here, so this is the app that we're editing, we can look at the assets form. So it's currently using that information form. But if I just refresh this page, I'm just going to go and remove all of these because it can sometimes be a bit of a pain. Once you've added them in and viewed them, switching them out again. So we're just going to remove all of these. I've removed them from navigation. I'm going to take them out of the app completely. We're going to go and edit all of our forms and views first, and then we're going to pull them in. Otherwise, you can get stuck with refreshing and doing all sorts. Let's go and take a look. So we're happy now. If someone creates an asset, they will add in the name, the description. They'll tell it they'll give it the location, and then they'll add the image. And we've got the owner up the top right. So happy with that one. We did save and publish that. Let's just back out. And we updated our asset view as well. Now let's head to location. So let's have a look at our location view. Make sure we've got the columns we want to show in our location view. Okay, so we've got our name column. We don't have any other in that one, so that one's fine. Back out of that. Now our location form. We should be okay with the main one because again, we are only giving the location a name. It's got an owner. Let's just shift the owner up the top right. We don't want people to set the owner in this instance. They can just create it and pop that up top right. Again, I'm just going to get rid of the related. So it's nice and clean, and let's just save and publish that. Now, just a quick note, if you have hidden anything on a form, you can just turn this bottom toggle on. That means that you'll see all the hidden stuff. So if you want to click it and do something with it, you can. If you want to get rid of it again so you can see what your form will look like, just turn that off. Now we've saved and published that, let's head out. Now let's look at work item first. So our work item view, so our active work items. You can see here I've created a few rows, and using that auto number, it's given this automatically generated number, but it doesn't tell us anything from here. We actually want to see, let's see the work item state. So we want to see what state is that work item in. We want to see the asset that it's related to. We want to see the due date. We actually don't want created on, so we can just remove that from there. And I think that is everything that we need. I mean, let's put created on actually, because we do need created on. So we need the date it was created plus the due date. Save and publish that. And let's drop back out. And then our work item form. So here's where things get interesting. So we're going to create a new form. We're going to create a new main form. And this is our work item to load. This is our work item admin form. General, just to get rid of that. So it's only got name on it at the moment. So that's no good to us. We want to put the owner up the top right. Now we can actually create a few different things here. So I've got, it's got a one column tab. That's what this is called here. It's a tab that's one column. We can actually add in like a two column tab. So we could add in a two column tab here. Oh, I created two by accident. Just delete that one, press and delete on the keyboard. You can see we've got double sections. So we could add in like our asset ID in one and a due date in the other. So you've got lots of different things. You can create forms that go across different columns and up and down. I'm going to keep it simple for this one. I just want up and down. Makes it just more readable and also makes it easier to use when you're on a mobile device. But we need to add in our extra fields. Now, name is going to be auto-generated. So we're actually going to make that read-only. We don't want someone to be able to create that. That's going to just be part of the form. And I'm going to pop it up the top right, because we don't want to see it here and get people to get confused. Now, the first thing that we want them to do is say, okay, what is the due date for this work item? And which asset does this relate to? That over there. Oh, there we go, it's on there. And then what we want to do is I'm going to add a new section just beneath it. And I'm going to call this section tasks. In here, I want to show all the tasks. Now, remember, a work item can have multiple tasks. I want to be able to show all of the tasks related to this work item underneath. And this is where we can use the grids. So we can add what's called a subgrid, because there could be multiple items. We can't just put a single field. You'll notice task doesn't appear in here, but it is a column that it's related to. So if we head back to our components and go to grid, we can add a subgrid in here, and it's going to ask us, okay, but what items am I putting in this subgrid? So we want to show related records where tasks is equal to work item ID. So for every task that is related to this work item ID, I want to show, and I want to show the active tasks. That's going to create a grid that actually is going to be editable as well. So people will be able to add new tasks and also edit the tasks within it. Now it gives it this label name. Because I've got tasks up the top, I'm just going to call it tasks subgrid just to get rid of that name. But I'm actually just going to hide the label. I've got this section. My section has tasks on it, so I don't need it on the actual subgrid as well. And on the right here, you can see you can switch it between active tasks. You can click this allow users to change view. So if there's different ways of looking at your data, you can let people just chop and change the view for themselves as well. So massively flexible. How many rows do we want to show? Well, look, we're going to have loads of space. Let's put 10 in there, or let's just say use the available space. It's the bottom of our form. If there's loads and loads of tasks, just go. Use the space as you need to. And that should be it. So when I create a work item, it'll auto generate the name, so I don't need to worry about that. I need to say what's the due date and what's the asset ID. And then I can add tasks in. So if we just save and publish that. Now, if we head back out of that, we go to our tasks. Let's just check our task view. So this is the view that's going to be shown in that subgrid because we selected the active tasks. Now, I've got the name, doesn't really tell me a lot. I want to put in the description there, and I want to show whether it is or isn't complete. And I don't need the work item ID because I'm going to show that in my actual subgrid. So it'll be the work item ID and there'll just be the related records. I'm not actually going to surface the task specifically, although you could, so that people could see it from a holistic way. In my app, I want them to go via the work item to see the tasks. And then we are going to check the priority of that task. Put priority in there. I'm going to remove created from. Priority needs to go in there. Hello. Add it in. Get rid of that one. So that's all we need. So that's all we need in that view. So now we'll be able to see the description. Let's expand that out so that it's got a bit more space. You can see the name and is complete and the priority. Perfect. So let's save and publish that. And back. And lastly, for my task, I just need to create a new form. So it's got this basic form. Again, I'm going to create a new form. I'm going to call it task admin. Owner is irrelevant in this instance. Owner can be used if you want to actually assign it to a person and a person uses it. But for my purposes in this demo app, we're not going to worry too much about that. Again, we're going to hide our related. We don't need to see that. Name is something that we are going to put in there. We also want people to give it a description. Is complete, they don't need to see. They do need to be able to edit that. So if they want it in the admin, come and change that. We want them to be able to edit it. So let's just pop that below in a new section. Drop is complete on there. That kind of speaks for itself, so we can hide the label on that. We put the priority up here. So when I'm creating one, I want name, description, priority. And work item ID, I'm just going to pop that up the top right, just so if I go into the record I can see which work item ID this relates to and be able to connect backwards and forwards. Let's save and publish. Okay, so that is the majority of the work done. Now, if you were going to do that in a Canvas app, that would take an awful lot longer. That took probably a few minutes at most to get all of the forms, views, and everything set up. The relationships are all there. Now, all we need to do is go and add them back into our app. So I'm just going to save this with nothing in it. I did load them in, so it might have some weird caching issues. So I might have to wizardry the YouTube just to do some refreshing. But let's see how we go. So let's add in a new page. So we want our Dataverse tables. We have our asset, task that we should have named correctly. Let's just drop them both in for now. And what else do we have? Location and work item. Again, work item is something we shouldn't really use because in field service that exists. We don't have it in here, but it's a demo. Okay, let's add all of those in. Tasks. In fact, we're actually just going to remove both our tasks. I don't want people to go straight to tasks in mine. I want them to do assets, locations, and work orders from this app. Now you notice when I remove those, they're just removed from the navigation, but actually they still exist down here. So they're still in the app. I'm just going to remove those for now. We'll see what happens in a moment. So now my work item form, my location form, yep, none of the new forms have come through, but they are still using the information form. So if we click on any of the views, we should see the new views. That's view, location, view, work items, view. What we can do though is because when people are in the app, they can actually choose to see different views. There aren't loads of them in this, but for this, I'm going to say, actually, I don't want them to see other views. I just want them to use my active assets view. So I'm going to click this button down the bottom right, which removes all but one view from the app. Now you can go back and add more in by adding here, which means they'll have those options. So if you're building your data out and you want to have different ways of viewing it and filtering it, and you want to give them names, you can do that and include only the ones in the app that you want. Maybe that there's multiple model-driven apps that are using the same data source, so you might want them in one app and not in the other. This is a really simple demo app, so we're just going to keep the active assets in there. Same for locations. I'm going to get rid of everything except the active, so they'll only see the active. And the same here, I'm just going to turn those off, so they'll only have the active views. And I'm going to do the same for forms, because I don't want my app to get confused by the information form and my new main form. So I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to say the asset admin form, which is the one it's defaulted to, is the only form in this app. I'm going to do the same for locations. In fact, the locations we didn't change, so we can just leave that one on. Work items, forms, I'm going to turn that off as well. See how this has left the information form in now. It's actually this form I want to keep and this form that I want to remove. So I've just switched that around. I've said work item admin is the form that you're going to use. You have to have one form in there at all times. If you notice, if I try and do this, it's going to say, no, you can't do that. You either have to restore them or keep this one. There always has to be one form in there at all times. Now, if we publish this, closed all my other browser windows, I'm just going to press play and see if this works. If not, we might have to just shut down the browser window and reopen it again. So this is my app now. I've got assets. I can see my assets view. I can filter, sort, search, and do everything here. I didn't create any of that. It all comes out of the box, which again is amazing. If you've ever tried to build a Canvas app that does all of that, it can take forever. I've got my work items. So let's check for work items. So let's just click on a work item and see if our new form has come in. Nope. So I'm just gonna have to quickly close down the browser and bring it all back up again. Okay, so I'm just back in my solution here. I'm just going to click publish all customizations. That's going to go through everything in my app and just make sure everything is published, so that when I go over to my app, all those changes I've made, whether I've missed a button or something, should now be published, and we can go into the app and hopefully see our new forms available that we can use. Okay, so it took a little bit longer than usual. I think it's because I'm in Australia and I'm editing everything in the United Kingdom. But now if we go to an asset in our app and then open assets, we can see we've got our new form. So the owner's up the top right. I can change the name, the description, and you'll see here we've got this lookup. So currently I've got it as hanger B1. Let's drop that out. We click in here and click enter. We can then see all of our locations. If you wanted to just search for one, start typing, I'm going to bring them all up so I can choose from my hanger. So that's how we then add a relationship. So this is that 1-1. So my asset is at a location, and we're doing this from the asset form over to location. Now, if we just save that record, head back, let's take a look at work items because this is slightly different. So we've got our work item, which is related to an asset. We can click that asset, go back to that asset form that we saw. Also, this is where we use our tasks. So if we click this form, you'll see I've got a work item. I've got a due date of the 18th of September. That's actually back to front for me. My settings in this environment are US. It's related to an asset. Now we can add tasks in here. So we can add a new task. So this task is refuel ship. The ship needs refueled. That's a standard task, so it's giving me the priority as standard. Is complete? No. So then we can save and close that. And you'll see now that task shows under this work item. And if I add another one, repair hull. The hull needs repaired. That's a priority 1 and it's not complete. You can save and close. So now an admin can really quickly just come in here. They can add assets, add locations. I can create a work item. So let's go back here, let's create a new work item. It's going to be due on Saturday and it's the Mary Celeste, which needs done. Now you see I can't do tasks here. That's because I haven't created this item yet. But if I click save, it will create the item and now I can relate items to it. The reason it doesn't let me do it before it's created is because it has nothing to relate to. So in the Canvas app, yeah, you could do some UI UX. So there's some nuances here, but for the speed of delivery and that small detail, I mean, you gain so much. So then I can create a new task. So again, this one needs refueled. And yeah, the ship needs refueled. And that's just that's a standard. We can save and close. So we just created a new work order. We gave it a due date and we've given it a task. So as an admin, I can go and do so much so quick. Let's have a look at some of these other work items that I think I created. This one's in progress. You can see it's got 3 rows down here. I can go and check these tasks. Has it been done? Yes, that one has been done. So you can say, yep, lovely. And if we go back, this one, has that one been done? Yes, that one's been done. And has that one been done? Yes. So this is one of my in progress ones. If we go back, there's a complete one. Again here, all completed in that one. Some of these I don't think have tasks. Oh, they do, but these ones haven't been completed. So this is my admin app. That's it done. Like I'm not going to go massively into detail, but you can see how you can build this out a lot more. You can change the icons on these pages, make it look pretty. Let's edit this. I'll edit that. Click on this and go to our settings and we can change the icon. So use web resource. There's all these icons already saved in Dataverse. We can add our own if we wanted to. I'm just going to pick something here. So an asset, what's it going to be? It's going to be this. If it's a location, change the icon to something else. You can see you can use anything here as well. So you can add SVGs. You don't have to use anything out of the box. Yeah, book, that's fine. Obviously, I'd pick something a bit more appropriate for this one. But I don't want to focus too much on this app. I just wanted to show how easily we can create tables, build relationships, and then build an admin app over the top that we can then assign out to our admin users to do the admin backend. So next, we're going to create some security roles and assign permissions to the entities for our admin users. Okay, so we're back in our solution. We've got our tables, we've got our apps, our admin app. We're going to do the Canvas app last because that's the fun stuff. What do we need to do now? So I'm assistant admin, so I get access to all these tables. So in that admin app, when I'm doing things, I can do whatever I want, but we need to set up a specific role that we can assign our users to give them only the permissions they want. We don't want the Canvas app to control the security. Again, like I said, this is the biggest benefit of using Canvas, using Dataverse over SharePoint lists. Is all of this is going to be much easier. We can create multiple roles with lots of different security privileges across all of the entities. We can do it really quickly and easily. So if we're in our solution, which is the way we always build of our components, we go to New, go to Security, and see here we can create a new security role. Now, I'm going to call this Task Manager Admin. We're going to have a Task Manager Admin, and I think we call the other one a Mechanic, but we'll have it called Task Manager Mechanic. So I'm just going to prefix it so I know in amongst all of the out-of-the-box security roles, which ones are my own. Business unit, we are just going to set it to the main business unit. So there is this concept of creating multiple business units within Dataverse. If we have multiple business units, we can have multiple teams. Again, that's a video for another day. There's always one standard business unit. So this role is just going to be in the standard business unit. So when the role is assigned to a team, they just get direct user access level teams and privileges again, because we're not going to worry about teams and business units in this. Include the app opener privileges for running model-driven apps. This is one of the background security roles that just lets them open a model-driven app. So we're going to say, yeah, we'll include that in there. Okay, so now it's jumped into our security role. Now you can see it's given them some basic user level accesses. So it's inherited the basic user privileges, which is just some of the stuff that it needs to see to be able to do what it needs to do. We want to add our own tables. So you can see here you've got all of these different permissions. So each of these on the left-hand side is an entity. That's a table. Some of these are system tables. We'll look for mine in a second. Now on the right, you can see we've got different levels of access to that table. So we've got create, read, write, delete, append, and append to. Now append and append to are for lookups. This says I can either add a lookup to it, or I can create another item that has a relationship to it. So append and append to relate to assigning lookups and relationships. Assign means I can assign it to different people and share it to different people. We're not going to worry about that. That goes well beyond this video. If I look for my table, so asset. So this is our admin. So at the moment, it has no access to my asset table. But actually, this is the admin user. So I want them to be able to create as a user. I'm just going to say organization because I haven't set any business unit teams or anything to this. I don't want it just to be user because they'd only be able to use their own records, but as an admin I want them to be able to edit everyone's. We're going organization level with this one. I want them to be able to read them all. I want them to be able to write, delete them, append and append to. In fact, I'm going to remove delete. I don't want them to delete, just want them to soft delete as we spoke about before. I want them to set them to inactive. Sign in, I'm not too worried about. You can just create them as their own. These are not assigned specifically to people. That's not how we're running this one. We're just going to let everyone see everything for this one for now. Then our next one is location. So again, location, we want them to be able to create, read, write, not delete, append and append to. And then work item. And then work item, we want them to be able to create, read, write, append, and append to. And what was our final one? Task. So we need to be careful here because we do have that other task, but you can see here the custom table task has CKC prefix. So because I used my own publisher, I know that's the one that I created. So we want them to be able to create, read, write, append, and append to. Perfect. So we can just save that. So now this role, we can assign anyone in our Dataverse environment to, and they get all of that access immediately. Let's go back. So you'll see in our solution, we now also have our security role, which means that when I export this solution, the security role comes with it. So all of my apps, my tables, my columns, my roles, my security, all goes in the solution. Meaning I can move this between environments, dev, test, production easily. I don't have to rebuild stuff or remap stuff or make sure it's the same. So while we're doing security roles, let's build the actual role for the mechanic user. So let's do another new security role. And we're going to call this task manager mechanic. Business unit is the only business unit that we've currently got. We can leave the rest the same. Okay, now this one's slightly different because what I want is I don't actually want my users to be able to create read in. I don't want my users to be able to create and edit locations. I just want them to be able to see them and use them. So for this specific role, they're going to be able to read them. They're going to be able to append and append to, because I want them to create a work item still. So in fact, no, actually they don't need those because those are on the asset. So actually we can give them no append and append to. They just need to read the locations. That's all they need to do. And then assets. So we just want them again to be able to read assets, but we want them to be able to append an asset to another object. So that's a work item. We're going to let them append them to the asset, to the work item. And then work items. So we're going to be able, we're actually in our Canvas app, we're going to let them create a work item. We're going to let them read all work items, but we're only going to let them write to their own work items. So I'm not going to let them change someone else's, only their own, but they can create new ones and read all of them. And then append and append to. So yeah, I want them to be able to append and append to, because we want them to be able to create tasks and we want them to be able to associate assets to it as well. This is only for their own tasks. So task, we want them to be able to create tasks. Now I want them to be able to create and edit tasks for the that they can see, because they want to be able to tick off other people's tasks. So for my work items, I've said, yes, you can create them. You can't edit someone else's work item. I don't want you changing the name and description or the due date. But what I do want you to be able to do is I want you to be able to update tasks. I need to set them to completed. So we'll set that to organization, meaning anyone's records in this table, they'll be able to write to, and append and append to, because we want them to be able to append them to a work item. Okay, is there anything we've missed? Assets. Did we give them access to assets? Yep, so they can read assets. They can read and they can read. So they can read and append to locations, work items, and tasks. So this security role, we save that now. Now, as a mechanic, has completely different privileges to that of a admin app. So we can just put people into those security roles or AD groups into those security roles, and they automatically get all of these granular permissions. And that's it done. So that's it. We've just set up these granular security roles already that we can use in our app. Perfect. So now just sticking with the security roles while we're here, and this is why I created the app previously. So I've got my task admin app and I've got my task manager app. Now I want to be able to give people permissions to use them. So if we go to my admin app, which is my model driven app, the same way that someone has to be granted access to an app, we have to do the same for a model driven app. But you can see here I can add people. Now we don't want to do it that way. We don't want to add groups and people. We want to give the security role access to it. So if we click on the app here, we can see here, if we use the drop down, here's all the roles that currently have access to open and run this app. So sysadmin, yep, that's why I'm able to do it. System customizer. But actually we want to use our new role. So if we go down here and look for the task admin, only they were, here we go, task manager admin. If we scroll down through this list, yeah, so task manager admin. So this is my model driven admin app. So only my task manager admin should be able to load this app. If I don't tick mechanic, if you're just a mechanic over here, you don't get access to be able to load this app. So we're going to say, yeah, we're going to share that. So now sysadmin and task manager admins are able to open this app, anyone in that security role. This is a Canvas app that I've created just for the demo, but we haven't built it yet. But just as we did with the admin app, we're going to share it. This one, it's slightly different. So we still share the app to a group. Now, I'm not going to do everyone because it doesn't work that way. But if I had, say, a AD security group or something I was going to assign, this is how we would do it. I'm just going to pick, I think there's another user in here, which is just my admin user. So just imagine this is an actual AD security group. I'm going to share this app with that security group, which is probably pretty standard that everyone's used to. But in here now we can see down the bottom right data permissions. So it's saying these people need to have access to the data. So they're basic users. But actually, we need to make sure that they also have, and I wish they were in a better order, LMPQRST, task manager mechanic. So I'm going to say those people, as I'm adding into this app, which let's just pretend that's a group and not a single person, are going to get the task manager mechanic role as well. And then we're going to share that. Now we can do this another way. So if I'd already added that security group, or if I want to add individual users, say there's only 10 users specifically that I want to add, if we head over to admin center and go to environments, and let's use the default because this is the one that I've built my security roles in for now. If we go to here, we see we've got users. So this is where our security role lives, but this is where our users live. So these are all the users that are in this environment. If there was a security group on it, it would be restricted to those users. There's only 3 in here. So I can choose this user and manage the security roles. Now that person's got basic user, and you can see environment maker. We go down, they've now got task manager mechanic. So I could have just come in here and added those people individually as well. So if I cancel that, if I look at Rachel, manage security roles, we go down, she wasn't added to the app, but I can just give her the task manager mechanic role. So that'll give her access to all of the entities. It won't give her access to the Canvas app. I'd have to do that separately, but I can just add her role in here as well. There's a few different ways to do it, and there's more complexities to this than I'm showing. When we get into business units and teams, we should be using those as a way of adding multiple people at once, not going in individually. But just for this example, you can see how you can add a person in, give them a security role, and that security role gives them that granular access across all the entities. And you can create multiple security roles for different entries. If you had a single Canvas app and you wanted just admin people to have some roles but not others, then you can have your mechanics separately there. You can do that. Or if you want to have an admin app where some people can do locations and some people can only do assets, we can separate them out by different security roles as well. So really flexible, really powerful. Definitely something to play with and get your head around. And that's part 1. We have built out the foundations. We've built out the entities. We've added the columns. We've built some relationships, and then we've built a model-driven app around that admins can use to manage their assets, the locations, the work items, and the tasks. And in part 2, the fun, creative part, we're going to connect all of that to a Canvas app that our mechanics can use on a tablet, go and do the work items and complete the tasks. I'll see you in the next video.